those the public an idea of JPAs. We hear about them. It's used a lot, certainly in local government parlance, but we don't always know exactly what that means and what kind of oversight and authority they have. So we're hoping that this hearing can just provide a little bit of insight to that. We would like to keep in respectful of everyone's time within an hour of the hearing, so that everybody is respectful. So those of you who've already taken plenty of time off sitting through a hearing. So why don't we go ahead? We'll go up first. I believe Secretary of State's office would be first on the agenda. So please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Rhonda Pascal on behalf of Secretary of State Deborah Bowen. I want to thank you and the committee for the opportunity to comment on the Secretary of State's role with respect to joint powers authorities. As noted in the committee analysis that was prepared for this hearing, when entities form a joint powers agency or authority, the statute requires that a notice of the agreement providing for the creation of the agency be filed with the Secretary of State's office. That notice is to include the name of each public agency that is a party to the agreement, the date the agreement became effective, and a statement of the purpose of the agreement or the power to be exercised. In addition, any amendment to the agreement requires a notice to be filed with the Secretary of State's office. The notice for those amendments that are to be filed with our office includes the aforementioned information along with a description of the amendment or amendments made to that agreement. The statute further provides that an agency or entity that fails to file the notice required by statute within 30 days of the effective date of the agreement or amendment shall not issue bonds or incur indebtedness until such filings are completed. This statute went into effect in 1973. Since that time, there have been 2,199 notices filed with the Secretary of State, and there have been 1,938 amendment notices filed since that time. The filing fee for filing these notices with the Secretary of State's office is $1, and that fee is set forth in statute. In 2007, legislation added a requirement that the Secretary of State forward a copy of these notices to the State Controller's Office. And in 2009, legislation was enacted that required the Joint Powers Authority to file a copy of the full text of the agreement or amendments with the State Controller's Office, in addition to the notice that's filed with the Secretary of State. At that time, the Secretary of State modified its form for filing the notice to make sure that that agency or entity was aware of the requirement, the new requirement to file a full copy of the agreement or amendment with the State Controller's Office. The Secretary of State's role with respect to this issue has been ministerial only. Because the law does not require the text of the agreements or amendments to be filed with our office does not perform a review of the content of those agreements or amendments, nor does the Secretary of State's office have any enforcement authority over the joint powers authorities. The committee may wish to consider whether it is effective from a public policy perspective to have the JPAs file notices both with the Secretary of State's office and then the full text of the agreements with the State Controller's Office. This may be confusing for some of the entities, and we want to ensure that they are in compliance with the law. It might be beneficial to consider whether it might be more effective to have the notices and the full text of the agreements and amendments filed with the Controller's Office, along with the necessary enforcement authority and resources to ensure full compliance. That concludes my very brief comments, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Very good. Thank you. If we don't, we can, why don't we go through all the panelists first and then we can hit questions then. Sure. Controller's Office.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Linda Lingblom. I am with the State Controller's Office. I'd also like to introduce George Lolis, who heads our Division of Accounting and Reporting. First, we appreciate the opportunity to participate in today's hearing, and we hope the committee finds the information helpful. And also, we want to thank your committee staff for working with our office in preparation for today's hearing. It was exactly 4 years ago that the State Controller's Office participated in a similar hearing on joint powers authorities, which was conducted by the Senate Local Government Committee in February of 2008. The same 3 state agencies before you today also participated in that hearing, and although the committee at the time was focused on a specific subset of JPAs, the Controller's Office, the Secretary of State's Office, and the Treasurer's Office all came away with the same call to action. We recognize the need for more information, more sharing of information, more coordination, and more communication relating to JPA reporting. I am pleased to come before this committee to report on our progress. Since 2008, we have modified our reports in order to capture relevant information pertaining to JPAs that conduct conduit financing activities. And with the support of the Secretary of State's office, we were able to introduce legislation and implement SB 144 that required copies of JPA filings to be submitted to the Comptroller's office, and that the Secretary of State's office would forward us copies of any amendments submitted by the JPAs to their initial formation documents. With that said, of course, there is still room for improvement in the areas of transparency, oversight, and reporting. Before I dive right into the overview of our role and responsibilities, first I thought I'd lay out some of the challenges to give some context. As I mentioned earlier, in 2008, Section 6503.6 was added to the Government Code, requiring JPAs to submit a copy of their formation documents to the SCO upon filing with the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State even added to the top of its one-page filing form, I don't know if you have that in your, oh, it's right here, on their one-page filing notice, an instruction that clearly states that they are required to submit to the Comptroller's office the full text of their joint powers agreements. To date, we have had to send out approximately 600 letters to JPAs asking that they submit the full text of their agreements. The reason for the noncompliance could be that JPAs are either not reading the instruction or ignoring the instruction. Under current law, there is no penalty for for failing to comply with the requirements of Government Code 6503.6. But getting only a copy of this one-page filing form does not allow us to do the rest of our job, which leads to my second challenge, which is kind of a catch-22. Under current law, JPAs are only required to submit their financial reports to the State Comptroller's office if we make the legal determination that they are a special district, as defined under Section 12463 of the Government Code. And we can only make that determination if we are provided the full text of their agreement. So absent receipt of the JPA's formation documents, our office has no effective way of knowing a JPA exists, much less if it is subject to applicable reporting requirements. The third challenge, and I guess we wouldn't be a state agency if we didn't raise this issue, is the resource need. We do have some budget constraints, and we've had to reduce staff, we've had to redirect staff in order to fulfill other statutorily required obligations. With that said, very quickly, the current process that the SCO takes in the JPA reporting process includes receiving the JPA documents, coordinating with the Secretary of State's office to identify additional JPAs, sending letters asking for their full formation documents, and once we receive those documents, we determine if reporting is required. So what makes a JPA a special district? As was pointed out in Rhonda's testimony, there are over 2,000 JPAs that they have on file, and we have 771 who are reporting to the State Comptroller's office. While not all JPAs will be determined to be special districts, this is an important distinction to make because the law does not require every JPA to submit a financial transactions report to us, nor their independent audits to our office. So the criteria under Government Code 12463 for determining whether a JPA is a special district are as follows. The JPA is a separate legal entity, separate and distinct from the entities that formed it. The JPA has the authority to enter into and perform contracts, acquire and dispose of real property and personal property. The JPA has employees and a perpetual succession. The JPA has the right to sue and be sued. The JPA exercises the authority to incur debt and exercises the right to eminent domain. And now again, for the SCO to make this determination using the above criteria, it's critical that we receive proper notification, which must include, again, the full text of their formation agreements. With regard to financial reporting, the SCO is required by law to compile and publish the annual financial transactions reports of all special districts. Those JPAs deemed to be special districts would be included in this annual report. The special districts reports includes information on their functional revenues and expenditures, their assets, liabilities. Our office also works with an appointed 7-person local government advisory committee made up of city, county, and special district representatives to prescribe accounting and reporting guidelines for special districts. This helps to ensure uniform accounting and reporting practices. With regard to financial oversight responsibilities, as the staff report points out, the law requires JPAs to have an independent audit performed, and those audit reports are provided to county auditors. Our office performs the audits of state-formed JPAs. Specifically, we perform only 6 building authority JPA audits annually for Caltrans, DGS, and DGS. DGS handles the accounting for all 6 of those JPAs. The SCO has very limited audit authority of local JPAs. The only audit reports that we do receive are from those that are subject to the Federal Single Audit Act, which means that they expend or receive more than $500,000 in federal funds. Those JPAs must submit their independent audits to our office, and we do not perform the audit. Again, we just do a desk review. Finally, we have just one legislative recommendation. We believe that there should be some sort of establishment of penalty or some sort of repercussion for the JPA's failure to provide the Controller's Office with the full text of their formation documents or agreements. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Move over to CDAC.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of CDAC. I want to thank the committee and the staff for the chance to talk about CDAC. CDAC is, as you may well know, was created in 1981 to provide information, education, and technical assistance on debt issuance and public funds investing to state and local agencies. Legislation created CDAC as the state's clearinghouse for public debt issuance information. It also required CDAC to assist state and local agencies with the monitoring, issuance, and management of public financings. CDAC specifically serves as the state's clearinghouse public debt information, publishes a monthly newsletter, maintains contacts with participants in the municipal finance industry to improve the market of public debt issuance, provides technical assistance to state and local governments to reduce issuance costs and protect issuance credits, undertakes or commissions studies on methods to reduce issuance costs, and it makes recommendations on legislative changes that will improve the sale and servicing of debt issuance. I want to take a minute to talk specifically about what report CDAC does receive from JPAs. As with all issuers of debt, we receive a report of proposed sale 30 days prior to the sale of any debt issuance. The reports are available online and in hard copy versions, and issuers provide specific information on the proposed sale. Again, at the time of sale, no later than 45 days after the signing of a bond purchase contract in a negotiated or private financing or the acceptance of a bid in a competitive offering, the issuer must submit a final sale report, including specific information and offering documents and disclosure documents accompanying the report. With respect, again, to JPAs, we receive notices of public hearings on Marks-Roos issuances that conform to certain types of issuance. There are a number of exemptions. At the time the local agency approves the financing for capital improvements and makes a finding that the project will provide significant public benefit at a public hearing, they must notify CDAC and the Attorney General's office. Again, at that meeting, the resolution that is passed by the agency board, legislative body, must be provided to CDAC and the Attorney General's office. We also receive annual fiscal status reports from Marks-Roos issuers. The annual report is our ability to track ongoing outstanding balances and reserve balances, and it provides us an update on what debt is outstanding for the issuers. Along with that, we receive notices of default and draw for Marks-Roos issuers. Anytime the issuer defaults on a principal or interest payment or draws down on reserves, we are required to be, or the issuer is required to notify CDAC. And then lastly, with regard to refunding bonds, at the time a local agency sells refunding bonds at a private sale or negotiated sale, they must notify CDAC within 2 weeks of the sale as to the reasons why the bonds were sold in a negotiated or private sale. Information collected by CDAC throughout the year is maintained on a database in-house. The information is available through a web portal to the public. We also produce monthly and annual reports on issuance. With respect to that, I have a couple of data points that I would want to provide to you. Our database includes 833 unique JPA names, having issued 5,535 separate issues for a total volume of $180 billion. This is data collected between 1985 and March 1st of this year. We've received over 6,000 reports of proposed sale and final sales of 5,700. When I take a look at the data and try and give some representation of what JPAs are issuing debt for, again for the period of time January 1985 to March 1st, 2012, looking only at new money issues, we're talking $116 billion of issuance. About 49% of that is used for capital improvements and public works, 16% for hospital healthcare facilities, 13% for housing. Nearly 80% of it was issued as a revenue bond. The remaining 20% is a variety of different forms of COPs, notes, and I include in that the trans pools, tax allocation bonds, other bonds, and other forms of debt. Then I took a look at the capital improvement financings, which represented $56 billion over that same period, 1985 to March 2012. Of that, the breakdown is predominantly multiple capital improvement projects representing a quarter, another quarter power generation transmission, and about 20% is water, wastewater. We have other uses including public facilities, transit, and solid waste recovery vehicles. So that, in a nutshell, is the issuance of bonds by JPAs. Our database is undergoing some analysis now. We're taking a look at what we can do to improve not only the collection of data, but the reporting of our data. The interest in debt data has changed over a period of time since our establishment as a clearinghouse, where the interest was in only identifying the issuers of public debt. There is a greater interest in what agencies are utilizing debt for, how that debt compares to their balance sheet, and their ability and opportunity to continue to meet their obligations under those issuances. So we are analyzing what we can do to collect information that is more useful in the determination of fiscal solvency, applications and uses of debt, and the ongoing servicing of that debt. At the same time, the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board is building a database on debt issuance. Issuers have an obligation to file reports with them. There are opportunities to collaborate and overlap with what the MSRB is collecting at this time, and it provides some efficiencies if we're able to focus down on what California issuers do uniquely, and the data that may be available through MSRB to reduce filing obligations of the issuers themselves. So that's all I have for you at this time.
This may be a question for the Controller and Secretary of State. It seems to be having different kind of methodologies, it seems, and is there any way, or you have any thoughts on how to kind of, I don't know, create a database that has the same information for both departments versus, I know that there is a a discrepancy between the numbers of JPA's notices filed with the Secretary of State and then the number of full agreements filed with the controller. I mean, so obviously it makes it difficult for anyone to try to find out. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think, as Linda mentioned, absent having the full text of the agreements or the amendments to the agreement, it's very difficult for you to make a determination, first of all, the type of entity that we're talking about. But I think also one issue that may be occurring is if there is a notice of amendment filed with the Secretary of State's office, that might be a notice indicating dissolution. And so unless, again, you have the ability to review that amendment and match it back to the original agreement, you don't have a sense of if that total number is actually a lower number or not. So again, our offices work very closely together to try to compare information, but it has been somewhat of a struggle, I think, in getting even the entities to fully comply with the law and know that they need to file the full text of those agreements or amendments with the State Controller's office.
Right. I think if the goal is for more transparency of these JPAs, not only identifying the universe is important, but also being able to collect the important information that's needed by the legislature. I know that you typically use our numbers from our financial transactions reports for all local governments, including special districts, to make your budgetary decisions and legislative decisions. So since we actually do something, excuse me, maybe I shouldn't say it that way, since we have the role of having the responsibility to produce this annual financial transactions reports, I think it is incumbent upon us to be able to have some more compliance to existing laws, and maybe possibly having this controller's office be the one-stop shop to receive these notices of filings, receive their amendments, and then we can make the determination whether or not they should be providing their financial transactions reports to us. I don't know if you want to add.
What I want to add, this is George Lolis with the Division of Accounting and Reporting. The 771 number that we're talking about are JPAs that have been deemed to be special districts and are reporting with us. Now, the number that concerns me now even more is the difference between that 771 and the 833 that you have. So,
Mr. Bradford.
I just need a little bit more clarity, I think, from the Secretary of State's office as it states to, I guess, the definition of a special district. All JPAs aren't special districts, is that correct?
That is correct. But all JPAs are required to file notices both with our office and full text of the agreement or amendments with the Controller's office.
Oh, and that's where my confusion was, because I thought if they weren't a special district, they did not have an obligation to file. What was that was stated?
Yeah, the government code section that requires the filing of the notice with the Secretary of State's office is not specific to special district. It's all joint powers authorities or agencies or entities. And then the government code section that requires them to then further provide a copy of the full text of the agreement or amendment with the Controller's office references the code section that requires them to file the notice with our office. So it really does pertain to all JPAs, not just the ones that then require additional reporting requirements.
So the special districts have to file additional reporting to the Controller's office, is that correct? And if I'm not a special district, I don't have that obligation?
special districts are required to report their financial transactions to the Controller's office. JPAs are not required to unless we determine that they are indeed a special district.
And how do you determine if one is? And it said the right to acquire property, have personnel, but I thought all JPAs kind of like took on those characteristics.
They don't all. The majority probably do, but we have to go through the formation documents and strictly apply the criteria that's in the code section to see if they really are a special district. If they have the authority to levy a property tax, for example, they are a special district. That is one of the criteria. There are a few JPAs out there primarily library authorities, from what I understand, that do have the authority to levy a property tax, and those are special districts, and they should be reporting to us. But we have to go through the formation documents and look through all the details to see if they truly are special districts, and if we determine that they are, then we notify them that they need to start reporting to us as special districts.
So a street lighting district would not necessarily fall under that category?
Again, it would depend on their formation documents and what they're doing, all the details that would be in those documents. And sometimes we even need more information than what's in the documents, and we try to get that information from them.
So in order to dissolve a JPA, can the JPA, the board itself, do that, or would it take a vote of the formation groups? Say 2 cities form this JPA. Would those 2 cities have the authority to dissolve it, or the entity, once it's formed itself, have the authority to dissolve itself?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can try to find that information for you.
All right.
The Controller's Office, could you elaborate? You had a policy recommendation in terms of what we might look at to help to further develop JPAs and policy.
Well, one of the things that we were recommending was that we have some kind of mechanism, if you will, to require that the JPAs, well, even though the requirement's already there, but there's no authority for us to force them to file. We send them letters, we ask them to give us those formation documents, but if they don't, we don't have any authority in the code to go after them to get those documents.
So what would you think the appropriate response to their failure should be? Fine, perhaps?
That could be one possibility, that there are fines that we levy when special districts, cities, counties don't file their financial transaction reports. And we do levy those fines if they fail to file those reports. Whether that would be the appropriate response here, I don't know, but it is one possibility.
Let me ask that when they come to you, is there a fee that they have to pay when they present to you or when they report to Controller's Office?
There's no fee to report to the controller.
Is there a fee that they pay at the...
It's a $1 fee that's set forth in statute.
But there is no fee on the Controller's Office? Okay. Thank you.
This question is for the Controller's Office. You mentioned about, penalties, and was there reasoning why that was never put into the whole process? And then elaborate why you believe that would be helpful.
I don't know why that was not included in the original process. We just feel that there would be, if there was an obligation, if there was some consequence for them not providing us with the information, we would probably get a larger percentage of compliance, so we can get those documents and make that determination. The Secretary of State, I believe, was over 2,000 JPAs that have filed the one-page document with them. However, we only have 771 that we've deemed to be special districts. We just sent out 600 letters, that, like Linda mentioned earlier, fairly, well, I can't remember when we did it, but it was a while ago. And even the response from those 600 letters was minimal. So.
And have you put any thought that what that penalty would look like?
Not yet. We haven't.
And I think we could do more with outreach. I think we can definitely do more with trying to, contact these JPAs. Maybe they don't know about the law. Like I said, maybe they're just, filling
But you also
these notices.
mentioned resources, so I'm being mindful of that too.
Right.
And to do more outreach, you probably need more resources, right?
Exactly, right. To call up all 600 or, the ones who didn't respond to our letters, even having to go through their formation documents. It's quite a tedious process, and it takes expertise. It takes time to analyze. Some of these JPAs have 38 member agencies. Some of them own power plants. Some of them, do financing, issue tax-exempt bonds. So it really runs the gamut, and the variety is so great that it, again...
So do you have the capacity right now to do the outreach?
No, we don't. But I kind of wanted to veer a little bit away from the penalty issue. I know that sometimes...
Well, I just want to understand where your thinking is coming from, because you had mentioned it.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I find it very troubling that in a complex economy and this great state that we have, that when we turn our state controller, how many JPAs are out there, we don't have a definite answer. And like you said, they file the notices with the Secretary of State, but we don't even know which ones are still active, right? And so I find that very troubling, and certainly a need to be able to at least be able to tell the residents of California and the legislature, how many of them are out there, how many are active. And certainly I got the information that back 6 years ago, you guys were in 2006, trying to do the research, but limited resources made it difficult for the State Controller's Office to go through all the different files in the Secretary of State's and make the determinations which ones are actually deemed to be a special district and should be reporting to you. So why not, instead of just having special districts, why not just have all JPAs file that agreement with you? Makes your work easier rather than having to go to another agency and do that kind of investigation determinations. Have all of them file directly with you, and when they become inactive, similarly report that, and then we're able to know which ones are no longer active. And certainly the last point about just an enforcement mechanism is important. I mean, there has to be some way to have jurisdictions provide that information, just like state controllers did recently with providing all the information on salaries and all the employees, and then those that don't report back, that's made public. I know I've called some of my local jurisdictions, special districts, and cities when they haven't been compliant, and I'm asking them, what's happening? Why haven't you turned it in? And so a few days later, they make sure they get into the State Controller's Office. So there's been other recent changes in terms of just reporting back to State Controller's Office that I think has resulted in getting communities to respond when they haven't provided information in a timely manner.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think your first recommendation is a very good one. And actually, in 2008, when the local government committee looked at JPAs who conduct financing activities, Senator Negrete McLeod actually introduced a bill that would have just simply required JPAs who perform this type of activity report to us directly. That is definitely an area I think we can look at. If we took away, the responsibility of having to make that determination, that would save us some time. If this legislature believes that JPAs who do a certain type of activity is important enough that they should be providing their financial information to us, then yes, I think it's definitely an avenue or something to explore.
Are there any other questions from the committee? I would like to bring up, we have a couple people that wanted to speak during the public comment portion, and so maybe if the panelists could just hold tight if there's something raised, maybe. Mr. Urban, sure.
I'm Gene Urban. I represent the California Statewide Community Development Authority, which may be the state's largest JPA. I won't take long. It is CSCDA. It was created by the League of California Cities and County Supervisors Association in 1988. It has over 500 members, cities, county, and special districts. I believe every member of this assembly represents a city, county, or special district that's a member of CSCDA. In its lifetime, we are a conduit financer, kind of a mysterious concept. We finance both public and private activities. In its life, it has issued approximately $50 billion worth of debt. We are actively servicing $30 billion. Our governing documents say we can't go out of existence until the last dollar of debt has been paid. Makes sense. In those 25 years, approximately, we have helped construct 60,000 apartment units, single-family residences, hundreds of medical facilities, including hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, assisted care living facilities, countless education facilities. We have had one default in our 25 years. Twice in the last few years, as recently as 2009, I think the last time, this legislature designated CSCDA as the reliable and reputable entity in statute to do the Prop 1A securitization. $1.9 billion to over 1,200 members, an unprecedented effort that we fully deployed in a historically short period of time very successfully. We continue to attract members. We continue to finance the projects that I'm confident that you all support, and that your cities, counties, and special districts continue to approach us to build. We will issue as much as $1 billion of debt for a project. We will go down as small as $6 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever it takes. I have examples of a recent traffic improvement project that we just did in Desert Hot Springs. Last quarter, we did $450 million. We are an active, ongoing enterprise, fully in compliance with all the laws, reporting, and auditing requirements that were discussed today. We supported Senator Negrete McLeod's SB 99 from a few years ago. So if you ever have any questions about conduit financing or any of the activities in which CSCDA engages or is alleged to have engaged, because not everyone is a supporter of ours. We actually have some critics. We think that those criticisms are misplaced, but we would gladly entertain any questions and talk to you. We are as visible as you like. Thank you very much.
Very good. I want to thank, unless there's any other comments from the panelists or committee, I want to thank you. I want to thank the committee for sticking around. I really do appreciate that. We actually maintained a quorum during the committee, so I do appreciate that. I want to again thank our panelists for taking their time and their patience today. With that, we will wrap up our informational hearing, and we'll see you guys when we get back from spring break.